Welcome to the intro into vibe coding. What is vibe coding? At its heart, vibe coding is about building things with language and intent, not just the syntax or complex programming. Instead of learning to code like a computer scientist, you learn to describe what you want to exist and the AI helps you make it real. Think of it like storytelling for machines. Your idea is the story, the AI is your co-writer, the code is the book you create together. You're not learning to become a software engineer, you're learning how to make personal living tools that serve your creative life. Because authors are already halfway there, authors already know how to see patterns in stories, create worlds from imagination, communicate tone, structure, and emotion clearly. Those are exactly the skills you need for vibe coding. Vibe coding gives you the power to automate the boring parts of your business, build systems that support your business your way. If you can write a paragraph that makes a reader feel something, you can write a paragraph that makes an AI code. It's the same art, just a new medium. Some areas in which you can create these tools is creativity for story ideas, character voice chat, world consistency checker for productivity. You can make a custom writing timer, streak tracker, a focus dashboard. For marketing, you can do a blurb slash tagline generator, a newsletter helper, a content planner. For business in general, you can do a return on investment tracker, a launch calendar, a expense analyzer. If you wanted to focus on community, you can do a Discord engagement bot, an ARC feedback organizer, or a reader poll maker. Really, the world is your oyster. If there's something that you wanted a tool for, you can make it happen. Before we get started into making our tool for the day, we should go over some best practices. First, outline before you build. What are the features you want for this app? Next thing is building in parts, not all at once. Focus one thing at a time. Get that down, then move on. Next thing is comment like you're explaining it to a future collaborator. As you get into troubleshooting features not working exactly as expected, commenting makes it easier for the AI to focus in on the areas related instead of having to go through a bunch of tokens looking for everything. Next thing is setting often, just like our writing, where we want to save every 5 seconds, you will want to save your code every 5 seconds, if not instantly the minute you stop working. One of the platforms we'll be talking about is GitHub, which is a great place to keep your code stored. The last thing is don't fear imperfections. Refinement comes after it all works. So even if it's ugly, you can fix that later. First, have it just working. Let's get started on a project for today. We will be making a tool that'll help us generate blurbs, taglines, hooks, keywords, a reader profile, as well as pulling scenes and quotes that can be used for social media posts based on a manuscript we upload. So the first thing is to decide where you want to work. Your options is either Visual Studio Code or in one of the chat-based options like ChatGPT or Claude. We will be using the Visual Studio Code option as that's my preferred way to do it. If you're doing it in Visual Studio Code, one of the first things you want to do is have a repository in GitHub. Having an account on GitHub is free, so go ahead and make that. Once you have it, you will get the GitHub desktop application. Once you've got that installed up and running, we're going to go ahead and add a repository. We create a new repository. We're going to just call this social media post generator. And then we can leave everything as is. This is the default path for saving things, and you can leave everything else as the default. If you want to give it a description, go for it. My titles are normally good enough. We're going to go ahead and publish that to GitHub. I like to leave my code private unless I plan to share it with the world, which I don't for right now. But if you wanted to make this open source and available to other people, you would just uncheck this box and then publish. Awesome. Once that's there, next thing we want to do is make sure you have Visual Studio Code also installed, and then you're going to open it up. And now we've got it up and running. Now that it's open and up and running, we've got some options. So I have the GitHub Copilot subscription. I like that best. It gives you options to lots of models. It handles the usage really nicely. It tells me how many chats and stuff like that I've used. The ease in which it integrates in is also really nice. However, if you go to the extension section, there is one for Claude Code, if I could spell today, by Anthropic, which will connect your existing subscription to Claude to code with. And then there is Codex by OpenAI, which also will connect with your ChatGPT subscription and let you code with that instead. So if you have those, you do not need to sign up for the Copilot. You would just get this extension, the extension for whatever subscription you already have, get that set up, and you'll be good to go. Both of them interact well. I prefer the GitHub one specifically for when it needs to connect to my terminal for commands, but that is a preference thing. I would say test them all out in terms of which you already have a subscription for, plus the free trial for the GitHub Copilot. And once you know which one ever you like, move on from there. The actual prompting will be the same. Okay. So we're going to start a chat. We're going to be in agent mode so that it can actually make the changes that it needs. We're going to select a preferred model. I'm going to choose, I'll start with Sonnet 4 just for the funsies. I don't actually have too big of a preference. I've done coding with GPT-5 Mini. I've done it with GPT-5. I've done it with Sonnet 4. I've done it with Sonnet 3.7. This would be, once again, pick something small, easy, similar to the project that we'll be doing, testing it all out, see which one you like best, and then going from there. So let's go ahead and let the AI know what we want. Copy and paste. So the project, a blurb, tagline, hook, keywords, project, also plugins used for sub-based using existing all-in APIs via API. This will be hosted in Railway, so I can use this anywhere. So Railway is a hosted platform that can run your code, as well as letting you either use their domain or use a custom domain for you to access anywhere. So by default, a lot of times the AI will build it where you can just run it off of your computer, which is nice and all, but what if I want to run it from my phone? What if I want to run it from my iPad? What if I'm not at home and I've got a desktop but not a laptop? Things like that. So I like to try to make my applications accessible anywhere, but if you plan to only use it for one device, feel free to specify where you're going to be using it and how, so that the AI can better determine how it will choose its language that it'll be programming in. So while that's running and making itself a to-do list on the things that we're going to be doing and how it's going to be running, similar to when you normally chat with the AI, you can see all of the stuff that it's coming up with. So the things that it's going to have in its to-do is setting up the project structure and the dependencies it'll have. And then afterwards is going to create the manuscript processing module. From there, it'll implement the AI content generation. From there, it'll build the extraction system. After that, it'll build the web interface. And then finally, our final step will be to deploy it to Railway so we can use it. So it sees that we have the repository, so everything's good to go. And it's made its to-dos. It's starting to build out the actual structure with the dependencies, which are step 2. I didn't have Python, so it gave me a pop-up to say, hey, we need Python. Okay, so I allowed it to install. So now it can get into the next things that it needs. Now we're implementing the AI content generation. So that is where it'll actually take the manuscript and make the blurbs, the taglines, hooks, keywords, reader profile. And we can see it started to do comments on some of the things that it's here for. One of the other cool things is that you can see the changes of files that it's making, as well as the files that it made. So these are the requirements that it needs. This is it processing the manuscript. This is what it'll be using to do the actual content generation. We can see that it's going to have OpenAI and Anthropic by default. But if there was other AI LLMs you wanted to add in, you would just tell it that. You can see the prompting that it uses. So if you didn't like this prompting, you can go in and fix it. Here's the scene extractor now. That's finished with the content generation. Once again, going to be using AI to implement that. This is where we would keep our AI keys, as well as the models it would be using. So right now, it's got it hard baked into this. But one of the features we could add in later is having a setting screen where you can set all of that from there and it pulls it from that instead of having it manually set. And then this is the app itself that it's pulling up and generating. And now it's building the web interface, which is in HTML. So it's giving it a title. It's building out all of the sections for it. Here, section, upload section, feature section, footer at the bottom, how it handles the file uploading. So one of the things we didn't define is what kind of files it uploads. So we'll probably have to make sure that it'll handle all of the file types that we would like. Looks like it does docx and PDF by default, but in text files. So that would be one of those things that we would want to potentially update. So if you do say Markdown, you would want to add that in. So this is why outlining by default is really good, so that you can be as specific as possible. Because I just said upload your manuscript, so it just did the most general of the document types that exist, but it obviously did not do all of them. It's now prepping for Railway. We have a file for the results once it's done. And if we go to the Explorer, we can see all of the files and the folder my brain would keep up with me. We can see all of the files as well as the folder structure it's made as it's been building those files. So one of the things is Copilot has we've done this many iterations, so you want us to keep going so that if it is going off the rails and it's just doing things beyond what it needs to, you can stop it if you're like me and just letting it run. I can see that it's getting close to the end, so yes, I'm going to continue. It is not just running off track for the funsies. It was doing a README file at that point so that you can actually, in standard language and things like that, understand what's happening, what all it uses, what the prereqs are, how to set everything up, the details that you'll need. So you now know that you will be setting your provider, your model, your key, and how you would run everything. It also gives you a space so that you can choose licensing. So if you did make this available, you could say how they can change it or utilize it, as well as contacting you and the things that are needed. So it thinks that everything is done. So I'm going to keep all the changes that it made. And we have this example environment where we would put in our details and then we would test locally. So I'm going to stop sharing very briefly here and add in my keys. And then we will go ahead and test. One of the things that we need to do for being able to create our environment file so that we can test locally is copying the example it gave us. The easiest way to do that is this command right here. You'll just copy it. You'll see this little icon here that'll insert it, and it'll just run that command for you. Once it makes that command, you'll go ahead and edit it to your specifications. For this secret key, this is an encryption key, so you will want to use commands for generating a random secret key, and you can ask the AI for giving you that. Once we've got that file filled out, I will not be sharing my details. We will be using the commands that says test locally. Go ahead, once again, just have this send everything over. Sometimes you'll get errors from there. We will go ahead and do what it says. So we need to have us build the dependencies. And let's go ahead and tell it the error we got. That's applying when trying to test locally. Hopefully it'll detect that I'm currently on a Mac and that Python doesn't work. So it's going to switch. It knows the thing. It's going to try again. I'm going to go ahead and allow it to run the command set it wants. Looks like it overwrote my file, so let me go ahead and update that again. I go ahead and have that going, so it's now reading my file, and it wants to go ahead and try and run things again now. Looks like it had some issues, so now it's fixing things. It's checking things. Now that it's hopefully fixed things, we're going to go ahead and run it again. New errors, different errors. Looks like it's getting rid of Anthropic and going just to OpenAI, since that is what's causing problems. And testing it again. And the port it's trying to use is already in use, so it's going to try it with a different port. And now it's running, yo! Now we can go ahead and launch this in our browser and see what it looks like. So we're gonna go ahead, click on the link. Oh, it's not looking good. Let's make sure, yep, it's got the right stuff. So go ahead, take a screenshot, and look at AI now. Screenshot. That's the error we're getting. We're gonna go ahead and give it to the AI so that it can troubleshoot. Let's keep all those changes it made. Paste that image in, and we're getting the following error when accessing via the, checking the terminal. It didn't like the index.html that we had. So it is fixing things where it looks, because it does exist. It's going to kill our session that we had and then reload it. Go ahead and save things. It's there. And now it's checking that things exist. It's running. It's got a debug mode that it's adding in now to make stuff easier. So it's got to kill it now so that it can actually see the debug that it added in. Running good again. All is running. Debugger is active. Awesome. Hopefully soon it'll tell me that it is good for me to go ahead and start running things. Cool. It told me everything should be working fine now. So let's go ahead and refresh. And it's fine now. Awesome. So this is what it looks like for the beginning. So it's telling us what it does. Tells us the things. We can only upload 16 megabytes max. And it'll accept a text, a PDF, or a docx. It's got some nice graphics going on, some cool stuff at the bottom. Looks very nice, very pretty. Let's go ahead and choose a file. I've got a docx here. So I gave it the file. I don't know if it's successfully uploaded or not. I'm going to hit generate content, see what happens. Looks like nothing happened. And cell begins troubleshooting. Looks wonderful. But loading does not appear to be working. I select the docx file and I don't see it listed. And when I choose what's the name of this button called? Generate content button, nothing happens. Generate content button, nothing happens. Go ahead, set that off. So it's checking things and it's out of conflict. Structure looks good, but the actual do things part is questionable. So it's updating stuff. Okay, so it is saying that with the debug mode on, it should auto reload with the changes that it's made. So let me just go ahead and say keep just to be on the safe side. I need to open up my browser in developer tools and then try it again and see what happens as it does it. Let's go back into Safari. So that would be the inspect elements. It said console. So we're gonna go ahead and choose file, upload the file, a whole lot of nothing. So to be on the safe side, I'm going to hard refresh. Oh, that's reader mode, not the hard refresh. And I've already forgotten how to do this. We're just gonna do regular refresh and hope for the best. Inspect element, console, choose a file, select the file again. We can actually see the file. Refresh solves most problems. I just forgot to do that. Or I did it wrong. Options. Now that's all done, we're gonna go ahead and generate the content. It tried, and now we're having issues with our AI part. But progress. We can now upload files, and it tried to pull things. That's just the bird section. If I go to the hooks, this is going to be so cool when it actually works. Looks like the quotes part did actually work, though the quotes card appears to also be broken. Keywords didn't work. Reader profile didn't work. Scene excerpt could use some work. The character moments could use some work, as well as the teaser. So lots of work to be done next. Awesome. So let's go ahead and take a new screenshot and let the AI know. Copy and paste. That change worked, but now we have new issues. This is what I see for the blurbs, but I also have similar errors. Similar errors in the other generation sections. So it had an issue with the OpenAI library that it chose, so it is fixing itself. And we can see in our terminal that we can see the debugger noticing the changes that are happening and updating from there. Keep the changes it's made thus far, hit allow. It wants to kill it so it can make sure it's got all the changes, so we'll go ahead and let it do that. Let it rerun it. Everything is running live. It will hopefully see that and tell me we're good to test again. It did indeed. It's telling me it should hopefully be fine now. Let's go ahead and test again. So back to Safari. Refresh the page. I want to send the form again. Generate new content. Go refresh. one more time, upload the document again, generate new content, and looks like we're still having the same error. So go ahead, copy and paste, and let the AI know. Looks like we've got the same error. Made a bunch of changes. Things might be very broken as it makes a bunch of changes. Looks like it didn't actually remove out all of the anthropic things when it made that change earlier. Keep the changes that it's making. It's going to run things again. It's going to try a different approach. It's going to execute and see if things work like it should. I'm going to allow it. I've got a corrupted OpenAI install, so it's going to uninstall it and reinstall it. Testing things again. Now testing the dependencies since it's still having issues. Testing again. It's got victory. It's updating the changes that it's making. Running again. Awesome. It's hopefully resolved. They had to do some downgrading for several of the things. Let's go ahead and test and see if it's lying to us. Back to Safari we go. Do a refresh to be 100% sure. Upload our file. Showing it's uploaded. Generate our content. It's a thinking thing, so maybe it's really actually working. Please work this time. So it's times like these when you start to think about the changes you want to make as it thinks about thinking. So I would want something to show that it's working and the progress that it's making. I would also want it to potentially have different profiles. I could come back to this later or have it send it over to somewhere else. I will come back to this when it's done thinking. And we're back. It finally finished. Thank goodness. Huzzah. And it actually wrote things even better. These look like they might be accurate. This would be a definitely read through, make sure it's right. If not, start tweaking your prompts. Look at all of these wonderful hooks that it actually generated now that it's working. Oh man, it does such a great job on all of these keywords. I don't know if they're 100% in terms of what I would want them to be, but that's a prompting thing. The actual product itself is now working. And look at that. We've now got our target profile as well. Oh, that looks awesome. And then here are the scenes. And it actually pulled everything out. It actually looks like it did stuff. Awesome. So now that it's working, this would be when you start making changes. Does this have a save all? I do see it has a copy content section. Let's see what that looks like online. Let's just do Google Docs. Google Docs. Sign in. Blank doc. And then paste. So that's just scene 5. So that would be one of those things. Like I would want all of the scenes, not just scene 5. So minor things. This is when you would do debugging. Oh, I want to be able to copy everything and have it copy. Let's see if this target profile actually works really well. It does, but once again, it looks a little bit ugly. But instead of troubleshooting, making this look nicer and things like that, we will end it here. So we've got a working product, and that is the hardest part. On to the next thing. Now that we've got a minimum working product, now let's go ahead and get it on Railway and have that working. So we will go ahead and make sure our latest version is saved to GitHub. So you have a couple of options. You can go back to your GitHub desktop and it will detect all the changes that we made, and you would go ahead and commit the changes. You would tell it the summary is necessary with whatever comments you want. You can do that based on your own summary, or you can use Copilot to do it for you. Copilot will read all of the code and changes that were made and go from there. So this is an initial commit of us syncing for the first time, and it's just describing everything that happened. And we would say go ahead, commit to main, which is the primary branch. We would go ahead and say push it to GitHub, and now GitHub has the latest version. The other option is on your Visual Code directly. There is an extension you can get that will do a similar thing. That is what this branch is right here. It would see all the changes. You would once again make that same message. You would stage your changes, and then you would push those changes, and it would once again connect to it. Now that it's on GitHub, let's go into Safari and go to Railway. So once again, you can start out with free if you have small applications and you use it frequently, you won't need to spend money on it. But if you think you might let it languish, but you don't want your stuff to go away, you can review their pricing. It is based on $5 a month and for minimum usage, and then the more you use of it, the higher your price gets. Currently, right now, I'm spending $10 a month, and I've got 3 projects running constantly. Okay, so I'm gonna go to my dashboard, and we're going to make a new project, and we're gonna go into our repository. We're going to find our application. Because I have so many, I'm going to just start typing social media. There it is. It pulls the repository and is going to start building things. It's going to detect what it has. It is building the image and going from there. One of the nice things about having things with GitHub and the Railway is when you make changes to your GitHub, Railway will build the latest version using that new code. So you don't have to manually go in and update things. It'll automatically notice the change and update for you. That does mean if you do make this publicly available, you will want to make it so that you can do the stuff as is. If only my brain would work. If you make this publicly available, you will want to make notices before you actually send that final commit. Your other option is to have 2 instances. So before there was that main branch, you can make multiple branches. And so you would have your main branch that you would commit to that's stable and everyone can use. And then you would have a test branch or a development branch where you can make all your test changes. And once you're sure that it works as expected in Railway, not just locally, you would then copy from your test branch to your main branch. So it was able to initialize successfully. It's building successfully. It also deploys successfully. It's now getting its final network stuff together. And then once it's done with this post deployment, we have this URL here at the top that we'll be able to access through. It's taking its sweet time. And we've got failure. Okay, let's see what our failure is. Go to the logs. It's filling the health check. I don't even really know that we need to do a health check. So let's go ahead and make some changes. So we're going to first change this deployment. We're going to go to the settings. We're changing it to Railpack. We don't need a health path. So let's go ahead and let the AI know. I see you set up Railway deployment settings. Next pack is deprecated and replaced with I think it's called Railpack. I've already deleted it from memory. Let's go confirm. Yeah, it's called Railpack. Also a network health check is unnecessary. If you want to add that in later manually, that's fine, but I've found having the AI add that into the configuration file for a railway causes lots of problems. So we're just telling it to get rid of it. Should be removed. So as you can see on the left here, the changes it's making is to the railway. So it cleared everything out. It's going to auto detect everything. It tells it's the start command that it needs, the restart policy. On failure, it's going to try 10 times. And that is it. So all of our environment stuff we're going to have to set manually, which is fine. So we're going to go ahead and push it through the extension so you can see it. So you can either use the AI here to fill things out. We're going to go ahead and stage the changes, and then we're going to commit and sync those changes so that they can go to GitHub. And then if we check our railway, we should now see it initializing and trying again. So there it is. You can see it can see those changes that we specified. And now we've got a build error. It couldn't figure out how to build the app, even though it's Python and it can build using Python. So we're going to go ahead and copy this and take it back over to the AI. Oh, my copy and paste did not work. So let me stop that and try again. I hate when that happens. Okay, Safari. Copy plain text. It's probably because I selected download instead of copy. Edit message, select all, paste the actual error that we got. So it can't tell anything based on the stuff. So it is checking the status of everything. All the files are committed, which it can see, which means it's got a different problem. It is updating the format for our runtime so that hopefully it knows that it's supposed to be Python. We've got a new file now, making sure everything is associated. It is staging the changes for us. It is committing them for us now. It's making a script just in case. And now it is pushing that into our thing. Going to say keep all of those files. And now if we go back into Railway, we will see that is initializing again. New build, woohoo. Let's see if this one actually makes it to the end this time. And these failed ones, similar to our first one that got removed, will also report removed once this is done. If it doesn't, and you're like me and you hate seeing it, you can do it manually. Go to the 3 dots, select remove, and it's gone. Well, we've got victory because we're already past the build stage, which is where it failed last time. So it did actually note that it was Python. It's actually building. It built it successfully, and then we crashed, which is very unfortunate. So we're going to go ahead and select restart and hope that this time it built successfully. It did. Woohoo. It's actually here. It's running, which means we can go to the website and we've got a new error. It crashed again. Did not like the command that it gave. So we're going to go ahead and copy that, take it back to the AI. But we're getting closer. Looks like the script that it gave as another option, alternative, did not have that in there. So it is updating that in all of the places, as well as the railway configuration. It's also simplifying the deployment, making sure that it's got the right permissions to do that. Go ahead and keep the changes that it's making. As your conversations get long, it'll start to summarize it as it keeps going. It's similar to in other chats where it'll tell you your content got too long and you need to move to a new chat. So for instead of needing to move to a new chat, it's just condensing things. This also means if there was something very specific at the beginning, unlike now where we're just troubleshooting and it's got all of the files, and you had other steps that you wanted it to do, those would be lost, which is why one of the best practices is do things in stages, one thing at a time. If you're trying to do 5 things at once, it might get lost. So new change was to fix railway. It just pushed it to GitHub. So we should see that. Trying to deploy again. And there it is, back to building. Close this out, get rid of our failure while it's building. It initialized. Let's see if it can actually get past the build stage to the deployment stage. It got past the build stage, awesome. So now we're at the deployment stage. And it deployed successfully. Let's see if it launches. It did not. So now we have to go into the logs and see what we get. It can't find the stuff. So back to sending errors and fixing errors. This is why getting it working locally first is always great, because you know it should work. Now you just have to make it accessible for everywhere. Making sure it's got all the files. At some point, one of the changes was that it does not contain that file that we had. It told it to ignore that. It is adding that in now. Committing our change. Pushing our change. It thinks it fixed it. We can only hope.